Hey y'all. So I came to do this video. I know the title is a little out there, but I really did feel like I chased a ghost for years and now he's gone. So my grandfather passed 2 days ago and I did not know who he was until 2019. Didn't get to meet him in person until I want to say 2021. Yeah, I believe it was. I believe it was. Yeah, it was the summer of 2021 when I met him in person, and I'm wearing this purple Kango because he loved Kangos and he always wore them to the side. He, Daddy, and myself share a love for hats. I don't wear when I was a teen. When I was in my teens, I wore hats all the time. I don't wear them so much as often, but I do still love them. So that's something that me, him, and my father have in common. But like I said, my whole life growing up, um, I was under the impression that another man was my grandfather, and I had never met that man either. But I started actively looking for him when I was 11, and I never stopped. I never stopped. I literally felt like I was chasing a ghost because I started getting really frustrated. I remember being at the cemetery visiting my grandmother and my mother in love, neighborhood insurance baby's grandmother, and I stumbled across this grave literally because the grass was kind of growing over it, and this guy's name was Alvin Ace Jones, and y'all know my father's nickname was Jones. And I'm like, is this a sign that I'm getting closer? Because I was under the impression that my grandfather's name was Thomas Frederick Jones, and my dad's nickname was Ace, and I literally tripped over that grave, and it's this guy whose last name is Jones with the nickname middle, I guess it was his nickname, it was in parentheses Ace, and I'm like, maybe this is a sign that I'm getting closer. And this was like maybe in 2019, 2018, something like that. So literally I had been looking for this man forever, and it was starting to really bother me, right? So then, thanks to good old ancestry.com, I'll spare you the whole story, but thanks to ancestry I found my aunt, and I knew she was, from taking a look at her profile picture, and me and her looked so similar, it was like crazy. Then when we got to talking, at first she was like, well, maybe, um I had been doing a DNA thing for a while, so I knew based on the amount of DNA we shared, especially when I started comparing it to other relatives, and the amount of DNA I shared with them, I knew she was my aunt, half aunt. I don't use the term half, but just for the sake of explaining everything, I knew she was, like my father's sister. But she wasn't so convinced at first. She was like, well, maybe he could be my uncle's daughter, blah, blah, blah. She had just recently started her, research far as doing the actual ancestry test and, comparing DNA and everything. So she wasn't as well versed in it as, some people who have been doing it for a long time. But as soon as she sent me a picture of her father, who was my grandfather, I knew right away, because when I looked in his face, I saw my father's face. After going my whole life, my father looked so much like his mother. I remember I kept saying to myself, I don't know what my grandfather looks like, but I don't think my father looks anything like him because he looks so much like his mother. But when I seen a picture of my grandfather, I knew. But she wasn't so convinced yet. So to, we went half on a test to confirm, and it came back 100% that he was my grandparent. I like stalked the results. I kept stalking the results. So as soon as they came in, I was excited. Excuse my nails, they look a mess. Um, so I got to know who he was in 2019. He voluntarily gave her his DNA, with the ancestry you have to spit in a tube, and he did it. And then the results came back, and at first he was like, I don't know. I don't have any other kids out there. That's a whole other story. So he came around, and I got when I, like I said, I got to meet him in 2021 in person, but that was at his sister, my great aunt's funeral, and we all wore purple and black. So the first time I met him and we were able to take a picture with each other, um, he had on this. His hat wasn't this color, but this is the color his shirt was, and we all had on purple and black. And I didn't introduce myself. I just walked up to him and I said, "Can I give you a hug?" And he said, "Yeah." And as I was walking away, he asked me, "What's my name? Who am I?" And I said, "I'm Lakia," which I have a cousin named Lakia, his other granddaughter, who before I came along, she was thought to be the oldest, but I'm actually a few years older than her. So although I'm the new grandchild, I'm the oldest. And so he was like, "Oh, Kia," he was like, "Oh, I don't have my glasses on. I ain't really recognize you." But you could tell he was standing there. He kept looking at me. He was like, so he must have realized, no, that's not Kia, but who is she, right? So, um, not long after that, my aunt talked to him, which is his daughter. She talked to him and she let him know who I was. That came up to him and gave him a hug. And she got the okay for her to give me his number. So we had been talking over the phone. I would call him every now and then. He would call me, but I don't think he called me intentionally. Like his eyesight was starting to fail. So he would call me trying to reach other people. Like he would try to reach my Uncle Steve and he would call me instead. So I would hang up with him and call Uncle Steve and say, Granddaddy is trying to reach you, give him a call. So in 2022, I believe it was October of 2022, 3 months after Neighborhood Insurance baby was born, me, Neighborhood Insurance baby's dad, and Neighborhood Insurance baby rode up. He lived in Jersey. We rode up to New Jersey to spend a day with him. So I actually got to sit down and get to know him and everything like that. And when I walked in his living room, the first thing I noticed was he had 3 bikes. And I think I've showed my tattoo on this channel before. I have a man riding a bike on my left arm because Daddy loved bikes. And Daddy's bikes were stolen. So unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to have one of Daddy's bikes after his passing. But I was able to get a cool bike table. But that was one of the things that I noticed. So they also shared that in common. They have the same amount of children in the same sequence, 2 boys and the rest girls. Even their 2 boys. So they have like a lighter brown son that's short, and they have a darker brown son that's tall. Like it's almost spooky how they did not. My father never got the opportunity to know who his father was, but how similar they are is kind of spooky. So I chased this man for years, looked for this man for years. I was looking for the wrong man, finally found the right man, and now he's gone, right? And I don't know. my thoughts and my thoughts and my feelings are all over the place about it. I don't even know how to feel. I remember I remember um in 2020, because it was before I moved to Pennsylvania. I had a dream that he passed away. And in the dream, I was crying. And I remember thinking in the dream, I don't have a right to cry because I did not know him. Um, he was my grandfather, but I felt like I didn't have the right to cry because I didn't know him. I didn't grow up with him. Um, and he has all of these other grandchildren who knew him and grew up with him. And I just felt like I didn't have the right. But now, I recognize that no matter how long or how short we knew each other, how little time we spent together, I do have a right to feel whatever it is that I feel because he was a part of me and I'm a part of him. Um, and I feel like meeting him filled in some blanks for me because, like I said, I always looked at daddy and I was like, oh, he looks just like grandma. He is no way possible he looks anything like his father because he looks just like grandma. But um, me, when I look at him, and I've always said, you never know who you really are until you know the people from which you come. And when I met him, like even before I met him, when I saw pictures of him, I can look at myself in a mirror and see him. Like I see me, and I see him in me, and it's so crazy because, and we had a group cousins call this morning, and I'll get to that in a minute. But on a group cousins call, my cousin was like, I'm borderline jealous. Like, I'm jealous. Like, I look at you. Because I had put a picture, a split screen picture of my brother and our grandfather in a group chat. And they look nearly, my brother was younger. And this is a picture from my grandfather. He was younger. And they look nearly identical. And my cousin was like, he was like, I'm borderline jealous because when I first met you, because we never met. Did we meet? I can't recall if we met in person. We probably met and we probably saw each other in person at my great aunt's funeral, but we've been friends on Facebook for the last few years. And he was like, when I first seen you, I was like, she gotta be, um, she has to be one of granddaddy. What is she? One of granddaddy's children because she looked just like him, right? She looked so much like him. And then she was like, he was like, when I started seeing the pictures, I saw your father, and now you sending the picture of your brother. Y'all. I'm like, who do I look like? Cause y'all look so much like granddaddy, and it's crazy how it works out that way. Besides my aunt, so my aunt, I think I would say she's the girl who looks the most like him, and my father is the boy that looks the most like him. But overall, I think my father looks the most like him, and they never laid eyes on each other. But so my cousin and I, whose name is also Lakia, we just spelled differently, um, and we both of our K's in our name are capital. Um, we had planned to drive down. Um, I would be driving up and she would be driving down um, to see him and say our final goodbyes in December, which, he didn't make it to December, but we were going to go up and maybe, take him to dinner or something like that. And that never came. So, and so when my aunt let me know that he passed, I figured that I probably, she had already told her daughter and her siblings and everything. My uncle let her know, and then I actually was the first person she notified, and I didn't know that, so I called her daughter right after I got off the phone with her, and my cousin didn't know yet. But we talked for a while, and we were like, we had this plan in December, so we have to find another way, to honor him because, um, there isn't going to be any services. So I said, well, let's go help Uncle Steve clean out his apartment. And um and we're just going to go wherever he likes it or not, because he might say, oh, don't come here. We're coming, we're coming. That's how we would like to honor our grandfather. We'll help you clean out his apartment. And we decided that we were going to do the whole, the Kangos. I'm not sure what color, she's going to wear, but I decided, since this is the color that we were wearing when I first laid eyes on him in person, this is the color I wanted to do. So, how we came up with the decision to go in December is because when I found out, we knew for a while that he was sick, his health was declining, and he didn't have long, and he refused to get any treatment. He didn't want to get any of the treatment, so we knew that it wouldn't be long. But when I asked my aunt in advance, I said, so would his services be in Jersey, or would they be in Baltimore, because that's where the majority of his family is, in Baltimore. And she said he isn't going to have any services. And that's when I really felt some kind of way. And I I kind of felt like I didn't have a right to feel some kind of way, but I felt some kind of way because I felt like, almost like he was being thrown away, if that, I don't know if that's the right term, but like, okay, he's passing and we're going to do nothing, to like honor his life. But when I talked to my cousin, she was like, he didn't want, he didn't want anything. So he just chose to be cremated, and he didn't want anything. So I'm like, okay, it was he decided that he didn't want anything. So that made me feel a little bit better. But I still felt some kind of way. It was kind of like heavy. And I'm like, well, what am I going to, I didn't really know how to, really celebrate his life in my own way, because I didn't really know him, very well. So that's when, when I had the conversation with my cousin, and she was like, let's go take him out to dinner. And I'm like, okay, that's good. We can do that. So, the original plan was to do it around, the end of this month. But when she looked at the days that she took off work, that wasn't going to work. So we decided for the end of December, which, like I said, he didn't make it that long. But, so when he didn't make it that long, I said, okay, let's just go down and help Uncle Steve. So, which led to the cousins group chat. So let me go back a little bit. So when I think the very first time I talked to him on the phone, I asked him, I said, so what should I call you? And he said, what do you want to call me? And I said, Granddaddy. And he said, well, call me Granddaddy. And the rest of the grandchildren called him Pop Pop. And he was like, okay, yeah. He was like, because the rest of them, they call me Pop Pop. And I knew I didn't want to call him Pop Pop, because that's what my children and my nieces and nephews, that was my father's name for them. Their name for my father. My father was Pop Pop to them. And when I say to my children, I say, when I talk about my father to my children, I say Pop Pop. So I know I didn't want to call him Pop Pop. And my mother's father, I called him Daddy Pop Pop. I guess from here, my mother called him Daddy, and I called him Daddy Pop Pop. And my great grandfather, who passed away in 2012, I called him Grandpop Woodrow, because God gave me grandfathers in stages. So I had my mother's father from the time I was born until I was 7, and I was a granddaddy. So y'all know I'm a daddy's girl. So I was a daddy's girl, and then I was a granddaddy's girl, And then I met my great grandfather, which is my father's maternal grandfather, my grandmother's father. I met him in 2003. And I end up being a great granddaddy's girl too. I end up being a great granddaddy's girl, which I guess I stepped in my grandmother's place because she was a daddy's girl. She was really close to her father, but he lived in California. So I never met him in person until 2003, and I went and spent the holidays up there with him. I stayed for 2 weeks, and it was amazing, you know. So I met him in 2003, and he passed in 2012. So I got 9 years with him. Um, and then I found out who my grandfather on my father's side was in 2019, and he passed in 2004. So I got about 5 years with him. So my grandfather, so God gave me grandfathers in stages. But it was a little weird with this one because, like I said, I was a daddy's girl, then I was a granddaddy's girl, then I was a great granddaddy's girl. But the relationship was a little different with this grandfather. Um, and I was the oldest to all of the others, and I was also the oldest to him. But I'm the oldest, but I'm the new granddaughter, so it's a little different, right? But um, I like that all of his other grandchildren called him Pop Pop, and I called him Granddaddy because that was like our special thing. And I confirmed that on the cousins group chat today. So my cousin, she made a group chat last night, and it's for the purpose we're aiming for this summer coming up. We're gonna do a cousins cookout, and we already can tell that it's probably four of us that's going to be really active and in a group because my cousin, the one who said he was borderline jealous that we look so much like Granddaddy, he accidentally started a video call. And first six of us jumped on, but then two of them jumped off, and the four of us was still on. It was him and it was his cousin. I mean, him and his sister, and then me and the other Kia, right? And we had a good time. Like it was a good time. We laughed and we joked, and it just felt, natural, not forced and anything. But this started, so I dropped my car off 7:30 this morning to get inspected and emissions because in Pennsylvania you have to get your car inspected every year, and depending on where you live, you have to get emissions too. So I dropped my car off and I walked home, and I was back home before 8, and we had these messages going on. We started 7 something this morning, the group chat, and I put in there, Kia, she did some videos and she was breaking down, the relation for those who did not know, because there's quite a few of us in there, and we were talking about a lot of different things, and I said, okay, so let's get to an official, order of business real quick before we go too far. And I explained to them how I asked Granddaddy what, I should call him, and he asked me what I wanted to call, and I said Granddaddy. So I said, I just want to, verify something. I know y'all call him Pop Pop, and I called him Granddaddy. Is it anybody else that calls him Granddaddy? So pretty much we confirmed that I definitely am the only person that called him, the only grandchild that called him Granddaddy. So that was definitely our little thing. So I feel, I didn't get to grow up with him, but we had our own little special thing. Um, but just to say, we were in there blown away. So y'all know my father's name is Ace. Nickname is Ace. And when I first found out about, when I was first learning everything, my cousin Kia was like, well, or maybe it was her mother, my aunt. She was like, well, your Uncle Steve calls himself Ace too. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? So Uncle Steve, I was under the impression the last few years that they were both born February 27th. But then in the group chat today, I find out that it's the 26th. So their birthdays are a day apart. And they're either 2 or 4 years apart. I have to confirm that. My father's the oldest boy. And he and Uncle Steve are either 2 or 4 years apart. So, but they both go by the nickname Ace. Weird. But my cousin D, who was in the group, he also goes by the nickname Ace after his father. And then my youngest brother calls himself Baby Ace. And then, I have the hat that says Lady Ace. Occasionally, I'll go by Lady Ace. So it's just mind blowing, right? So then my grandfather's name was Stephen Nathaniel, or Nathaniel Stephen, because there was some name flipping going on. So I believe, I mean, no, let me correct that. My grandfather's name was Nathaniel Stephen, but I suspect, and my aunt said he may have been born Stephen Nathaniel and switch it around. That, they did stuff like that back in the day. So anyway, and it's just a trip because, okay, his name is Nathaniel Stephen. I have a son named Stephen. And my brother, the brother who looks a lot like him, his middle name is Nathaniel. And all of this was completely coincidental. And we were just talking about a lot of the things that we have in common. And my cousin was like, it's just crazy how it's like the way it unfolded. It's like it was all meant to be. We were talking about the similarities in names and, just different things. And then the nicknames with the Ace. And I said, yeah, in proximity, because when I met them, my cousin and my aunt lived directly. I mean, we lived directly around the corner from one another. And, my cousin Kia, she calls me twin because we don't really look alike. She looks more like her dad's side, but we are in so many ways like the same person. Even and not just our name. We have so many similarities. Even our zodiac sign, we're both Taurus, and she we know quite a few people in common. And a friend of mine who we were all mentors in a mentoring group together. She was also a mentor in a mentoring group, a girls mentoring group that we were, a part of. And I knew her. I think she knew me before she knew Kia. They go to the same church. And when she met Kia, so when she found out, I think it was maybe a year ago now, when she found out that me and Kia were cousins, she said, this makes so much sense. She said, because when I first met Kia, the other Kia, she said, when I first met her, I think they call her Songbird. She said, when I first met her, I said, this Kia reminds me of the other kids. She just said that to herself. And she was like, y'all have similar spirits, right? And it was just so funny because we are so much alike. She calls me twin and I call her first. And I call her first because she is literally my first cousin on that side. I didn't have many first cousins growing up. I had one on my mother's side and I had none on my father's side. Plenty of second, third, fourth cousins, no first cousins. Some more first cousins came about on my mother's side later because some of my grandfathers on her side, missing children, started popping up. I kind of let the cat out of the bag unintentionally about that. That's a whole other story for another day. But yeah, so I have a lot of first cousins now. But growing up, I literally had one, my uncle's son. So had I known them growing up, she would have been my first cousin. And then we are both the first granddaughters. And the reason why I say that is because she was the first granddaughter for 30 something years until I came along and it was discovered that I was truly the first granddaughter because I'm the oldest. But she was the first granddaughter that was known about. So, and if we had known about each other growing up, we would have been first cousins. We would have been each other's first cousins because, some of the other cousins came along later. So I call her first. And it was a few other reasons that I called her first. It was, but anyway, that's what I call her. I call her first and she calls me twin. And so when he was saying about all the similarities we had, and you know how we have similar spirits and stuff like that, I said, and proximity. So I was telling him about how when I first met my aunt and I met the my cousin Kia, we lived directly around the corner from each other. And then what makes it even more crazier, when we were at the funeral for my aunt, my youngest daughter went with me, and it was discovered that one of my other cousins, the grandchildren of the aunt who passed. Okay, a call was coming in, and my phone told me something. I thought the video stopped. So, the grandchildren of the aunt that passed, when I first met my grandfather in person, he, they went to high school. My youngest daughter knew them. They went to school together. Proximity, right? Then come to find out, my dad and my aunt worked at the same job at the same time. That could have been really a crucial situation, because y'all know my dad and the ladies, and he liked chocolate women, and my aunt is chocolate. That could have been really messed up because they could have dated. Thank God they didn't. Never knew they were siblings, didn't really know each other. They'd seen each other in passing. My aunt said she had a memory like they worked at a cab company. He was a cab driver at the time, and she was a mobility driver, and she was in line, and some guy tried to get in front of her in line. She was like trying to cash out or something, and the guy jumped in front of her in line, and my father was like, man, you know, you can't jump in front of that sister like that. You know, that's who he was. And he's saying, you can't jump in front of that sister. And it was actually his sister. It's crazy, right? So that was the memory that she had of him, not knowing that he was her brother. And then years later, I took a part-time job at that same cab company as dispatch, and my aunt was working there at the same time too. And I didn't, we didn't know each other. I don't think or maybe she wasn't still there when I was there. I can't remember, but my daughter's grandmother worked there too, and they knew each other for years, and we never knew, we was related. So it was a lot. So then I have a cousin who I knew since I was a teenager. My mother, I mentioned before, my mother is a licensed nail technician, and my cousin, which is my grandfather's aunt, her mother and my grandfather are sister and brother. Her and my mother worked in the same salon. She was a hairstylist. My mother was a nail tech. They were pretty cool. And the whole time, she's my cousin. Did not know. And just a lot of, other different stuff. Like, then another cousin I found out on the day after, not the day after Halloween, but here they celebrate. Remember, I did the video and I had on the witch's costume. Me and Neighborhood Insurance Baby, we ended up in the Baltimore Sun. They were taking images from the Halloween parade, and me and Neighborhood Insurance Baby, we ended up in the Baltimore Sun. And my cousin, she saw the article, and she messaged me, and she was like, I didn't know that long story short, her daughter lives in Hanover, Pennsylvania too. And she moved here on New Year's Eve, and I moved here on January 1st. So we basically, moved here within days of each other, and neither one of us knew. And when I'm out delivering, I'm like looking for her, even though I don't know what she looks like. So I'm going to ask her mother today if she has a picture of her, or if she's on Facebook, because I want to start, a Moms of Hanover group, like for those of us Black moms. I did go to a mom meetup the other day. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, but I want to start something, I was the only black person in the room, which is fine, but um I want neighborhood insurance baby to have community. I want him, he went into the, little children's room, and he ran up to a little boy and said hi. He's really excited to be around other children, and the little boy kind of looked at him like he was crazy. So most of the time he kind of played with himself. He had a really good time, but he played by himself. And that's what we get a lot. So I want to start something for mothers of color, and for our children, they can play together, and we can be some be community for each other. That's off topic, but anyway. So anyway, I'm going to try to get in contact with my cousin, because I would like for her to be a part of that, and she has children who are a little older than neighborhood insurance baby, but not too far off. So back to the topic at hand. So yeah, I decided to do the Kango to honor granddaddy. um I'll be going down to New Jersey soon, um, to help my cousin. Me and my cousin, to help out Uncle clean out his apartment. Um, I did kind of feel, my cousin did say in a group today that Uncle Steve, he does plan to do some obituaries, although he's not, we're not doing these services, because my grandfather, he has two sisters left. They're still living, but one is in Baltimore, and I want to say the other is in Texas. And he wants obituaries because he wants them to have something, of their brother, like some kind of something to not remember. You definitely you have memories, and all of that to remember him by, but he wanted to do something. So she did say, she wanted us to send any pictures that we had with granddaddy to her phone, so she can send them to Uncle Steve, so that he can work on some obituaries. So I do kind of feel better that at least there will be obituaries. And it's so weird how feelings flop, because my dad was Muslim, and they have very low maintenance funerals, so we didn't do any obituaries for daddy. And I remember feeling like, thank God. I have almost every obituary from every funeral I have attended, probably since the age of 11. But I didn't think that I could bear seeing my father's face on an obituary for the rest of my life. Like, it was, the thought was like grueling. Like I remember feeling at peace with the fact that I wouldn't have to see my father's face on an obituary. However, one of my sisters, now me and her, we call each other twin because we look so much alike. She felt the opposite. She wished there was an obituary. So everybody processes things differently, but I find some comfort in the fact that there will be obituaries for granddaddy. So it's kind of all over the place. I am very grateful. I could look at it like, I don't feel like I was robbed. I don't feel like I missed out on having my grandfather. Um, Maybe I skipped over that phase, and maybe a part of me felt like that in the beginning. I can't really remember, but what I am is, I'm grateful that I was able to meet him, and two of my children were able to meet him. And though neighborhood insurance baby won't remember him, I guess I can't assume, because that little boy has a remarkable memory, but he was only 3 months old, so I highly doubt. But these children blow our minds sometimes. I don't think he'll be remember him, but he does. He was able to be pictured, in pictures with him, which is something my father was never able to do. So I'm glad that his grandson, that he was not able to meet, was able to be pictured in a picture with his father, at least. So I have that, and I have two different pictures from, well, I have more than two because we took quite a few pictures when I went to go see him in 2022. But I have pictures from two different occasions of him and I, and him and Neighborhood Insurance Baby. Um, and meeting him did fill in some gaps for me about myself. It filled in some gaps about my father, their similarities. So I more so feel grateful than anything that I was able to meet him. And it's, when my cousin was talking about the pictures in the group chat, a few of the cousins who grew up with him, they said they didn't have any pictures with him. So I'm also grateful that that was something I was able to do because some of his other grandchildren weren't. Um, and that's about it. And I'm glad that we, as the cousins, we're going to find a way to honor him in our own way, even though he's not having any services, because that was the part that was really heavy on me. I'm really, I feel like people shouldn't be forgotten. And not the lack of services doesn't mean that he would be forgotten. But I know sometimes, I don't know. I don't want to go too far off again because y'all know I can start talking about something in this video will be, forever long. So I just didn't want to, I feeling like there was going to be nothing done to honor him kind of had me feeling some kind of way. But I feel better that we all in our own way are finding ways to honor him, and that there will be the obituaries, and me and my cousin will go down and, clean his apartment. Overall, all in all, I'm okay. I'm kind of up and down. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. So it wasn't a shock to my system. And I guess when I found out about it, I had time to do some processing. And even if he wasn't sick, even if he was never sick, he was still an older man. So we knew that, eventually. But I'm just glad it wasn't like he had passed and then I came to find out who he was, you know. And I guess I said everything in this video that I intended to say. It is still, it's kind of weird finding your place in the family when you're the new relative. And it was a few cousins, not direct cousins, not like cousins that are his grandchildren, but some other cousins, like cousins that are his nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews that weren't so accepting. And that's fine because I'm at a stage where I don't lack family. I'm not really and I'm not out searching for, well, I guess in a way, I've always been big on family. So if new family pops up, I want to get to know, family, but I'm not like actively searching like, oh, I need family. No. So I'm at a stage where I embrace whoever embraces me. I embrace everyone, as my family, because that's who they are. But if they don't embrace me, that's fine. That's their right. So it was a few cousins who was like, no, but you can't, the DNA told the story. We have DNA proof. Okay. But that's fine. But my cousins, like my first cousins, like his grandchildren, the group called, like they are all so, it's like we've known each other forever, and it feels so natural and so forced. And I love that. And, I do, but you know how people pass and people were like, we got to get together, we got to stay. I really do believe, just basically knowing who my cousin Kid is, and I really don't know my cousin Chrissy that well. We only, really interacted through Facebook. I haven't seen her in person, but just from who I can, from the feeling that I get from her and her brother D, I really do believe that we're not going to be the type to just say, oh, we got to get together, and we don't. As a matter of fact, me and Kia, we've gotten together quite a few times over the years since we've known each other. And one of my brothers, so far, three of my, I don't think my oldest met them yet. My all but one of my children have met my cousin Kia and my aunt. One of my brothers has met them. I'm the only grandchild on this side that has met my grandfather, but my two of my children, so his great grandchildren, they met him. But yeah, so I really don't think it's just lip service where we're going to say that we're going to get together and we don't. I believe we're really going to make it happen. And I'm going to enjoy the journey of getting to know my first cousins. And I can't wait to hear. I just got to share this thing real quick, and I'm gonna jump off. So in the group chat, my cousin D, he was like, I'm borderline jealous, but he was like, one thing I can say I got from Granddaddy is you can't tell me I'm not the slickest, most handsome, baddest, whatever. I can't remember exactly the words that he used. He was like, but I got that from my grandfather because you couldn't tell him nothing, right? And it was so funny because it sounded just like my father. I said his father, I said my father got it from him too, right? And he was like, yeah, because you couldn't tell Granddaddy he wasn't pretty, right? And I'm like, it sounds like my father, right? And he was like, Granddaddy was the most, and he was like, and he wasn't joking, like he was the most arrogant, cocky, man. And I got it. I got that from him when I went to visit him. I could tell that you just couldn't tell him he wasn't the hottest things from sliced bread. I picked up on it, and he was though. So the first time that I met him in person, when I walked in that funeral and I saw him, I said, that's him. I knew because I was looking. I went to the funeral and my eyes, I'm like, look, I'm here to spot my grandfather, right? And as soon as I saw him, I knew it was him. I'm like, this man is sharp. And I heard Daddy's voice in my head. I said, if Daddy could see him now, Daddy would be like, Pop Sharp, ain't he? Because my father was very particular. He really loved, he always looked sharp, He would throw it on. He was always smelling good. He loved his hat. He loved his glasses. He loved his, his scents and his, his shoes. And he was a sharp dude. And you couldn't tell him nothing. You couldn't tell him he wasn't the hottest thing since sliced bread. You couldn't tell him he wasn't God's gift to the ladies. And that was Granddaddy too. And my cousin said that's what he got from Granddaddy. And it's just so funny. And my brother, the one who looks a lot like Granddaddy, that's him too, So I love it. I do. I just love it. I just love that they all have that trait. So and they work like they are sharp. Like I don't like I can't even take nothing from them. I can't even take nothing from them. These was some sharp men. The ladies confirmed it for them because all of them, the ladies loved them. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm going to jump off here. My car was supposed to be done at noon. It's like it's after 2. I don't know what's going on with the car. So it looks like I won't be doing any batches today. I'm just going to sit and work on some puzzles. Maybe it was meant for me to just chill out today. And hopefully it's done before it gets dark because I don't want to have to walk in the dark to get the car. But that's it. If y'all made it to the end of the video, thanks for listening to me just go on and on. It did help for me to just kind of get the feelings out, even though I don't even know if I got it out because I still don't think I whatever. But that's it. I feel like I chased the ghosts almost my whole life. I found them And now he's gone. And it's okay. Because now he and his son are united. They may have never laid eyes on each other in this realm, but I believe that they will know each other in, whatever form the afterlife is. So until next time, it's the neighborhood insurance lady. I'm wishing you love, laughter, life insurance, pieces of the puzzle, nice hats, and just love from family. Talk to you soon. Bye.